All right, guys, we are live. This is the Shillan and Duffy recap show. I apologize for the late start. We had a little technical difficulties. It is not Ben's fault. It's my fault. My computer's not working very well, and the program we normally use was not cooperating. We're sorry for anybody who usually likes to check this out live. But get back into it. I still had a better night than Darren Till. My name is Keith Shillan. I am a staff member for Sherdog.com. I am a writer for Sherdog.com. And I am the host of this show. Joining me, as always, is the senior editor of Sherdog.com. He is the great Ben Duffy. Ben, how you doing, man?
Hey, I'm doing well. We're both having a better night than Darren Till, and even your computer is having a better night than Modestus
Uh,
Mikauskis, so let's rock, man.
yeah. But people didn't see me having like a mental breakdown. Ben had to be like I was like that. You know that recap at the end of the tough show, the guy who loses and he's sitting there and the guy's got to rub his back and said, "You fought well, you fought hard." Like that was me for the last trying everything I can to try to get the program to work for us, but
I'm just sitting there. I'm like Frank Mir asking him what's the capital of New Zealand. Just trying to cheer a man up.
So let's get right into it. We only had 9 fights on an afternoon card, which is always a benefit. Uh, so let's get right into it. In the main event, we had Darren Till taking on Derrick Brunson, a fight that had a lot of title implications. Like there was a chance the winner of this fight could next fight be for the title. Um, I will say this: so Derrick Brunson won by third round submission by rear naked choke. I will say this: I saw two huge gaps. I saw a huge gap on the feet, and I saw a huge gap on the ground. The issue is Darren Till's gap was about the size of a football field. His advantage on the feet was about the size of a football field.
Hmm.
Derek Brunson's gap on the ground was about the size of the Grand Canyon.
It was, and even if the gaps weren't that relatively big, since 1993, we've learned that if one guy has an advantage in striking, the other guy can take it to the ground whenever he wants. We know how this fight ends.
Yeah, I apologize. If it's a little different with filming at 7:38 p.m. Unfortunately, my neighbor's starting up his really loud car as we talk. I have another neighbor setting off fireworks. I mean, this is just not my night. But I apologize if you guys can hear that.
Nope.
Um, oh, you can't hear it. Okay, that's good. I can hear it, and it's distracting me. But let me ask you this: people are really excited. They're talking about the turnaround from Derek Brunson. I think he's won 5 in a row. You always like to point out that he's not only has he won 5 in a row, he was an underdog in all 5 fights.
Yep.
Do you feel that Derek Brunson won this fight or Darren Till lost it? And obviously the answer is both. But I mean, are you more impressed with with Derek Brunson, or are you very disappointed in Darren Till's performance?
I'm impressed with Brunson. I mean, I said on the preview, I finally trust Derek Brunson to fight the fight that is going to be to his best advantage. That's what I've really learned in the last 4 fights of his. I was like, yeah, I said, I think he's probably going to, try to take it to the ground early and often. He's not going to hang out in the danger zone any longer than he has to. And he did that. So it actually is impressive to me that Till was able to land as much good offense on him as he was on the feet, before being taken down. I mean, this fight, it swung wildly. This was a night of wild finishes where there were huge momentum changes just within the 60 seconds before the finish. I mean, if things had literally fallen a little differently, Darren Till would have gotten his hand raised tonight. He had Brunson
Yeah.
badly hurt. They crashed to the ground near the fence, and just where they were and just the randomness of the sport, Brunson landed in mount. If he'd even landed in guard where Till might have been able to get up using the fence, this fight might have turned out differently.
Absolutely. So there's a couple of things I want to talk about. The pre-fight talk, they had those like about 60 seconds of them talking before they walk out. Derek Brunson was talking about wrestling a lot. And usually when someone's talking about one thing they want to do, that's a little like decoy and they got to do something different. And I'm watching him talking about, I'm going to take him down, I'm going to hold him down, I'm going to beat him up. When I mount up on top of him, I'm going to lay down big shots. And I go, oh, God, Derek Brunson's going to stand up with Darren Till and he's going to get knocked out. That's what I was thinking. To his credit, it was one of those, that scene, maybe it was that scene in, you ever watch Princess Bride?
Sure.
Where the guy keeps going back and forth? Well, if I was a smart man, I would say this, but you knowing that I'm a smart man, this kept going back. That's kind of how I felt. Shout out to Austin
Janola, yeah.
Gianello. Yeah, I apologize if I said his name wrong. Bragging, he's had a 7-2 evening, so good for him. Austin, let us know what 2 fights you got wrong. I had a very mediocre evening. I went 5-4. How did you do?
I got 6 right.
There you go. So Ben beat me.
Main event was really the difference right there. That's as close as it was.
There you go. Ben knew how to pick the main event. I went with the Englishman, Darren Till. I'll say this. I agree with you. Like this could have been close. It seemed like Darren Till was. It seemed like what I kind of expect to happen. Derek Brunson started getting tired out. Darren Till was going to start picking apart, and then he was going to land a shot. Then he started landing the shots, and I go, oh my God, he's going to win. He's going to come back. He's going to knock him out. I felt there was a huge also gap in IQ, which is funny because Derek Brunson used to always be the wild man, didn't have the best fight IQ. To me, Till had to circle and stick and move. And when Brunson was shooting in, like at one point he had him hurt, and then Brunson shot in, and instead of like sprawling out, he reaches over and it kind of tries doing like a standing guillotine, which allowed, this is the very end, which allowed Brunson to get on his hips, pick him down, and slam him. And I felt when Brunson landed in the mount, I'm not going to say a guy quit, but I felt like Darren Till mentally broke at that point.
I think the fact that he tapped so quickly once that choke was locked up kind of bears out that impression. Yeah, I felt like he was done. He wasn't the more tired guy. I'm sure he was hurt. I mean, he got ground and pounded the hell out of in the first round. But yeah, like I was surprised how quick the tap came, which leads me to believe like, yeah, maybe he was like, I don't have the answers tonight.
It's funny because I've seen 2 performances of Darren Till's where a guy came out looking to wrestle. One was Tyron Woodley, and Tyron Woodley was able to take down Darren Till and hold him down and finish him, and he looked absolutely terrible. And then fast forward a couple years later, I see Robert Whitaker trying to wrestle Darren Till, and he can't get him down. When he finally gets him down, Darren Till pops right back up. So finally I'm like, whoa, Darren Till's a much better wrestler than he was years ago. He's a serious problem. Now I'm starting to think like, no, he's not much better wrestler. Maybe Robert Whitaker isn't as good a wrestler as I thought he was.
Robert Whitaker is smaller than Till, and Brunson is not. Like
Jay
Petrie, Sherdog associate editor, pointed out, this might have been the first time that Till fought somebody his own size since he was like beating up on scrubs in Brazil in his first 5 fights.
Yeah, no, that's a good point, and I definitely think it made a big difference. Another thing that Darren Till was doing, he was holding on to half guard. I really felt like he should have been like trying to get to like open guard, like get into full guard and then eventually open guard, and then try to kind of use his legs to push up, create space. And he never really got that. The top pressure from, and I don't want to just blame it on Darren Till. I'm going to give Derek Brunson credit because he had a lot of top pressure pushing down on Brunson. So let me ask you this. So now Brunson's won 5 fights in a row. You're hearing now he's with Stanford MMA, and I definitely believe that is a big part with his turnaround. But how good is he? Because when you break down his record, you break down his run. I mean, you're talking about I don't have it in front of me, but going in reverse order. Darren Till, a lot of people are jumping off the Darren Till, but a lot of people are starting to say, oh, maybe Darren Till was never that good. Before that, Kevin Holland, that hasn't aged well.
Shabazian.
Before Edmund Shabazi, he's lost 2 in a row. That hasn't aged well. Was it Ian Heinisch was in there somewhere, right?
Yep, he was the next one before that, and then Elias Theodorou was the first one in this streak.
Okay, so Elias Theodorou is out of the UFC. Ian Heinisch hasn't aged well. Edmund Shabazian hasn't aged well. Kevin Holland hasn't aged well, and obviously Darren Till, he's on a bit of a losing streak.
He's lost 4 or 5. Yeah.
I mean, could we have a little bit of? Am I? Obviously, this is a recap show, so I'm leading into questions. I'm not really giving my opinion, but could be a little smoke and mirrors with Derek Brunson. Like, is this, or is he really? He's won 5 in a row, and he's truly a threat.
Well, he's a guy winning the fights he's supposed to win in fairly dominant fashion. I mean, if you tell me he's ranked 6th or 7th right now, I think that's about right. He's probably the 6th or 7th best middleweight in the world. But he's become a guy that just doesn't lose bad fights. Like if you throw him in there with a Shabazian or a Heinisch or a Till, apparently, he's going to come out on the right side of it. That's all he needs to be. Like, I don't think he's going to beat Israel Adesanya, but he certainly earned the right to try again.
From a technical sense, we talked about going to Sanford MMA. Daniel Cormier was stressing that a lot tonight, saying, instead of being big fish in a small pond, be the small fish in a big pond helps. I 100% agree with that. Get with the best. Get with one of the best teams in the world. Get with killers in the room. That always helps. That's one reason. Second of all, we just talked about his competition. Could be a little lower than the fight looks like, or it could just be he's kind of great. I also think the way he's fighting, he's really stressing his wrestling a lot more, especially his last 2 fights for sure. Mm-hmm. And also he's fighting a lot more composed. He used to be a wild man, and we don't see that now.
Nope.
Even we see glimpses, like there was glimpses where he'd almost overthrow, put himself out of position. That's where Till was able to kind of sidestep and catch him on the side of the side of the head and stuff with shots. But it wasn't. He didn't just eat that punch and then start swinging wildly. He went to his wrestling. He played off smart. Like, I feel like we have a much smarter Derrick Brunson, and that's probably the biggest reason for his turnaround.
I completely agree. He's at 37. He's fighting the best he ever has.
Yeah, I agree. So let me ask you this. So he's saying he wants to sit on the sidelines. He's saying he was right away. I mean, as soon as he win, he jumped up talking about Israel Adesanya, say my name, look at me, boy, I'm coming for you, all this stuff. He was asked, like, hey, Robert Whittaker might be next. What are you going to do? And he's like, I'm not poor. I'll wait. So it sounds like he's not looking for another fight. So let's do this for a second. Obviously, whoever Derrick Brunson's going to fight next, he's going to be the underdog because he's always the underdog.
Always the underdog.
Has he shown anything to make you think that the rematch would be any different against Israel Adesanya?
Well, absolutely. He's shown that he is willing to wrestle. And I'm not going to favor him against Adesanya, but that's proven to be a route to victory against him if you're big enough, strong enough, and a fundamentally sound enough wrestler.
Yeah. And the one time we saw Israel Adesanya lose, that's what happened. And you could argue, now he's not as big as Jan Blachowicz.
Right.
But he's fundamentally a better wrestler, or at least on paper. When we were breaking down paper, Jan Blachowicz is supposed to be a kickboxer. That's what he's known for. It is big left hook and all this. And obviously Brunson doesn't have as big of a size advantage on Israel Adesanya, but Israel Adesanya is not a big middleweight. I mean, he's tall and lengthy, but he's not physically muscular big, No,
he walks around 185. Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't favor him because the problem is, even now, Brunson, who is embracing his inner wrestler, he still gets tired fast.
Absolutely.
I could see him winning the first 2 rounds against Adesanya and then just getting sniped in the third or fourth because his hands go down a little bit or we can't get that takedown and Adesanya just measures him for like a question mark kick to the face.
Yeah, the thing you have to worry about with Adesanya is like when he was taken down against Jan Blachowicz, like there was no getting back. The rounds were over.
Yeah.
It looked very similar to what we saw tonight with Darren Till.
Mm-hmm.
But if Israel Adesanya has you hurt, like Darren Till had him hurt, like Kevin Holland had him hurt. So insert fighter after fighter. This seems like every fight Derrick Brunson gets hurt.
Lights out.
Israel Adesanya is going to put you out, though.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So I don't know. I don't know if I give him much of a chance.
Well, like I say, I wouldn't favor him, but I think he'd do better than last time. Because last time, he just kind of went careening at him heedlessly. He got sniped in about 4 minutes. And the finishing sequence was just Adesanya zapping a moving target about 10 times as he just went stumbling across the cage. It was brutal.
Yeah. Our buddy Bass is in the chat. He's saying he thinks Brunson has a legit path of victory. I asked Bass, like, how legit? I mean, like, give me 50% chance, like 50-50, 60% chance win. Like what if you had to put a number on it, what kind of percent chance would you put? And I think it's unfair to put Bass on the spot. What percentage chance do you put, Ben?
20. I think he'd probably be like, a plus 250, plus 300 underdog against Adesanya. I think that's about right. You know, if he
Yeah.
beats Adesanya, it's because either he wins the first 3 rounds and survives the last 2, or he, in getting Adesanya down, he actually hurts him, like with some ground and pound, because he was hurting Till immediately. As soon as he got Till down, it was just elbow grinding into the neck, into the head, measuring him for punches. It was not a pleasant experience, to be on the bottom there those first 2 rounds.
Yeah. And Bass said the same number, 20%. That's actually the same number I thought of. So three great minds came up with the same number. My buddy Chicken Parm, Dave Stewart, is in here. He said he enjoyed the night. Dave, tell us what percentage you would put of Brunson beating Israel Adesanya. Here's the issue, though, with who's next. Like, we'll go right into the matchmaking, and then we'll go back to Darren Till for a second. But let's matchmake. It looks like, it's not official, hasn't been signed, but it looks like Robert Whittaker is the fight to go with. I think that's probably the fight. What do you do with Derrick Brunson now?
They could have him wait. It's always good to have somebody just on hand. If they want to make him fight again, maybe make him fight the winner of Vettori versus Costa.
Yeah. I was thinking of this. The one issue by having a dominant champion like Israel Adesanya is he's already ran through everybody. I mean, think about it. He's the top guys right now is Brunson, Whittaker, Vettori, Costa, and Derrick Cannonier. Of those 5 guys, he's already beaten 4 of them.
He's already beaten 4 of them, and
now he's making his second time around.
I mean, Whittaker's next, and the UFC might let Cannonier sneak in there, even though Cannonier lost just 2 fights ago because he is the only new face there. If that's the case, I know Brunson said he isn't broke, but I'm sure he doesn't want to sit on the shelf for like 9 or 10 months. So
yeah, I mean, we're talking a couple months since Israel Adesanya last fought. He hasn't had his next fight. I mean, it could be 6 months between fights for him for one fight. Never mind three. Going forward. Dave Jacob Arm Stewart says 13%. Of course, Dave, I knew he'd come up with an obscure number. I actually thought he'd be more obscure, like 13.254 or something like that.
He's rounding down for us.
Yeah. When I used to have a website I used to run called MMA Takeover when I first started doing the MMA business, Dave's actually a local friend of mine, but he also it's really fun story how I met Dave. But we just love fights and became friends, and he was writing with me. He's the only person I know in the history that had picked a draw when we were making our predictions, our staff predictions for a fight. He picked a draw.
Did he get it right?
I don't think so, but just that's Dave for you. Let me ask you this. So, assuming Whittaker has gotten the shot, you're saying winner of Vettori and Costa. I like that matchup. But has he put himself in number 2? Did he jump Cannonier, or do you think no?
On straight achievements, he might have jumped Cannonier, but again, Cannonier has the ace up his sleeve that I haven't fought Israel Adesanya yet.
Yeah. So one thing we always like to say is, like, the UFC picks up the phone. Hey, Robert, you want the fight? He says no. They hang up. If you're running the UFC, we both said that Robert Whittaker is the guy you're calling first. Whittaker, something happens. He's hurt. He's Robert Whittaker, so he's hurt. Hang up. Who are you picking up the phone? Who are you calling next?
I think they probably call Cannonier next.
No, I'm not asking who they. I'm asking you. Who are you calling?
I call Brunson.
Okay. Yeah,
beating Till, even if as you pointed out, Brunson's 5-fight win streak has not aged that well. He's coming off a win over Till. Cannonier's coming off a win over Gastelum. I mean, the Till win's better than that.
Yeah, and just to clarify, if you're running the UFC right now, you would have him fight again. Like, now, when we say running, we're saying we're the supreme emperor. Fighters don't have a choice. Mind you, when we say that, I just want to put that out
like
there.
the real UFC.
That's not the world. Yeah, well, pretty close to the real, but not total. But like, so we want to put that out there. We understand that fighters fight. We're saying basically we're the king of the world. No one can say anything. You would have him fight again. You would have him fight Costa Vettori winner, correct?
Yes, and that's just because of the way the timeline lines up. Like, if Whittaker weren't available, I would slot Brunson in against Adesanya in 3 months with no question.
Yeah, and I would do the same matchup. I thought about Cannonier. The only reason why I wouldn't do that matchup as almost like a semifinals matchup. The winner gets, or number one contender matchup, is the fact that you have such a dominant champion who's running through everybody. Like, don't knock one of your top contenders off.
Right.
But if Costa or Vettori, the winner of that fight, beats Brunson, you kind of have the same situation. It's just really tough. Let's talk about before we move on. Let's talk about Darren Till real quick. This guy is now 1-2 at middleweight. Mind you, his losses been to Derrick Brunson and Rob Whittaker. Mm-hmm. So he's lost his studs, and he beat Kelvin Gastelum, where I don't know where people view him, but still, that's a good win. He's still 1-4 in his last 5.
It's the thing I said, man. Like he is smoke and mirrors, but by the eyeball test, he always looks like a guy who could be the top 5 fighter on the right night. Like you pointed out that
he almost did tonight.
Yeah, he almost won tonight. You pointed out that he had Whittaker even going into the final round, on your scorecard, mine as well. But eventually, you do have to win some of these fights if you want to stay in contention. I don't know if you're going to ask about matchmaking next, but to me, Darren Till is a borderline top 15 fighter coming off a loss, and he should fight another borderline top 15 fighter coming off a loss. He needs to fight a Heinisch, an Omari Akhmedov, a Trevin Giles. Yeah. He needs to take a step way back and just get a good, clean win.
Yeah, I totally agree. I know you are more of the win-win, loss-loss, Joe Silva style of matchmaking. I always, we've talked about this, I always talk about it as an escalator, where they are, where they're crossing. And that's where I try to find. He obviously is heading down, but he's still a big name, that a guy coming off a win who isn't a top 5 guy would love to get the call for Darren Till.
Yes.
I would match him with Brad Tavares. I feel like he's done enough in his career to kind of deserve that matchup. Co-main event, I think it'd be an exciting matchup between two guys. Brad Tavares is, while he's never reached the peak of the division, he's always so friggin' tough to give good guys matchups.
No, that's brilliant, because he is to the top 10 what Derrick Brunson is to the top 5. Like, Derrick Brunson, if you're a top 5 fighter, you can beat him. If you're not, he's probably going to beat you. Brad Tavares is like that, only around 10 or 12. Like, he doesn't lose bad fights, and he's always a tough out, but he's not the guy that's going to jump up and beat one of your, like, Whittakers or Adesanyas.
Yeah. We talked about what Derrick Brunson, we're going to move on, but we talked about what Derrick Brunson did to turn around his career. What does Darren Till have to do?
I think it starts with taking the step back. He just needs a good, clean win over a solid UFC level middleweight. I mean, the guy's still only 28 years old. He is so young. I mean, the guy just like dropped everything and moved to Brazil when he was like 20 years old because he wanted to get better at fighting. I mean, he's got balls of rock.
I think he had a warrant.
He probably did, and now he has like a couple of kids like down in Brazil. Like, I'm not saying his life choices outside of the cage are that good, but for like his weird accent and kind of like meathead demeanor and his external indiscretions, he's a smart fighter and very driven. Like, I don't think the book is written on him. I think he just needs to take a step back. I think he kind of jumped up to top level competition a little too soon.
Yeah. I think one thing, and I always like to remind people, just because you go and train with a certain style doesn't mean you're going to improve. I mean, there's guys who work in the wrestling for years and never become good wrestlers. But go find some wrestlers, like, get out of England. I tend to not be one of those guys that look down at other countries' MMA. I think, look at Australia right now. I mean, it's absolutely booming. I mean, but I think of it more of what you need, and he needs wrestling.
Well, even Bisping was saying that, and Till's been at Team Calbon forever, and I mean, I think they're pretty much undisputably England's top team right now, and have been for quite a few years. If this is as good as he can get there, then maybe just a change of scene would do him some good.
Yeah, I mean, get with either a very wrestle heavy team or a very jiu-jitsu heavy, or even if you want to do your main training camps with your team, but spend 2 months going out finding a top wrestler. Yep. Hell, the Olympics just ended. The NCAA just ended. There's going to be top wrestlers that's going to want to transition to MMA. Hey, you're Darren Till. Offer to teach him how to strike, learn how to better wrestling or something. I don't know. Um, wasn't all doom and gloom though for England MMA, as in the co-main event, Tom Aspinall took out Sergey Spivak in the very first round with a TKO. Absolutely beautiful. Oh, actually, before we get to that, do we have the awards yet?
I do have awards for us.
Do you want me to guess them? I don't know. I'll be 100%. I don't know who won.
All right, we have 2 performances of the night and a fight of the night.
Okay, 2 performances and the fight. I'm going to say Tom Aspinall had a performance of the night.
He is one of them, yes.
Okay, fight of the night is definitely going to be Molly McCann.
Jiyeon Kim.
Kim.
Yep.
Again, Jiyeon Kim.
So
Okay.
You got 1 performance of the night.
Okay. All right, let me think of the fights real quick. Let me think. It probably should be Roundtree, but I'm going to say they give it to Patty Pimblett instead.
You are dead right on both counts.
Yeah. I understand because Pimblett got a first-round stoppage and Roundtree had a second-round stoppage. But Roundtree almost wasn't knocked out like Patty Pimblett. But anyways, we're not going to get that far ahead because the whole reason why I brought up the performances is just to talk about how incredible a performance by Tom Aspinall. Now, both of us were very high on Tom Aspinall. We thought this was a really favorable matchup for him. Right? Yeah, no, I remember. Yeah, you picked Aspinall too, right?
Yeah, I mean.
Yeah, okay. I just wanted to make sure. Yeah, we both liked him a lot. Even though I expected this outcome, I expected a spectacular knockout, it's still really impressive when you see it. I mean, his forward pressure, his speed at heavyweight, and then his intelligence, like throwing a short elbow in close like that. Just so impressed by Tom Aspinall. Just tell me how impressed you were.
Same, and for the same reasons. Just very fluid, very coordinated for such a big guy, and effortless power. Like everything he throws hurts, not because he winds up on it, but just because he's a huge dude and he just throws with solid technique. Yeah, that's a dangerous guy. He's still Spivak is a good win. Spivak was a guy who was hanging around the 12 through 15 range. I think
it's a great win.
Been on a nice run. I still think Arlovsky, especially the way he ran through him, was an extremely impressive performance. He still hasn't beaten a top 10 guy, but on the eyeball test, it's just a matter of time.
Yeah, so he's 4-0 in the UFC. He's got 4 stoppages, which is very impressive. He's extremely athletic. He's very fast, but he's big too. He's not undersized. Like, he's a big heavyweight. He's not undersized, so he's just built right. He moves right. He's very similar style to the current champion, more of a boxing style than the current interim champion, I should say, Cirogan. Like Cirogan, but I'm saying the movement, the speed advantages. Like, he reminds me a little bit of him. Now, Gon is more of a kickboxer than more of a pure boxer. But also we've seen a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt who supposedly, I mean, he submitted Andre Arlovsky, but we keep hearing that his ground game's even better than his stand-up. I'm looking at a comment from Whiskey Dragonfly, I love that name, who said, Till has shown us he's not championship material, nor will he ever make it there. Time to move on to other young, talented prospect with more potential. So I'm going to weave that into Tom Aspinall. That's why I wanted to read it. I'm going to disagree with Whiskey Dragonfly. Simply under the thing is I've seen other guys that have been given up on at 28 years old go on to become champions. The one that always comes to my mind is Robbie Lawler. Robbie Lawler was when he came in the UFC, he was young, he was fresh. He was the guy he was good. He was taking over from Matt Hughes. Matt Hughes was the champion at the time. He was the next guy, kind of similar for guys been around with George St. Pierre and Rory McDonald, how that was kind of viewed, same weight class. And Robbie Lawler was going to be even better. That was the 2.0 version. Go to basketball, David Robinson, Tim Duncan type thing.
Mm-hmm.
Then he lost some. He was done. And he got brought back years later just to be a name for Josh Koscheck to beat up. And then he went on a run. If Darren Till did that wouldn't shock me. Michael Bisping was the guy that kind of got to the point where he'll never be a champion. But I'll agree that every loss makes his chances seem much and much less likely.
Yep.
So I'm agreeing with him, but still just reminding everybody that it's possible. That said, the way I'm going to transition to Tom Aspinall, I thought it was a good point. That's why I want to bring it up. But the way I want to transition to Tom Aspinall is, what about him? Could he be the next British champion? Because he looks championship material to me. And I know I love to live in the moment, and he beat Sergey Spivak. That's not a top 5 guy or anything, but just the raw tools you see.
He's got all the tools.
Yeah.
Like, and a lot of the questions that remain to be answered about him are things that we're probably going to find out in his next fight, because his next fight is almost certainly going to be against a top 10, upper levels of the top 10 type guy who has a well-rounded skill set. It might even be like a fight night headliner, so we might see how he looks in, a 4th or a 5th round. Those are the only questions left to be asked, really.
Yeah. He doesn't help himself by the way he talks. Like, afterwards, they give him a chance to call anybody out, and he's like, nah, I'm the 12th guy. Give me the 11th guy. And I didn't look at the UFC rankings to see who number 11 is. And I'm not going to say he called out number 11 because he really wasn't.
But he's talking about people, like, just by the numbers, he's talking about people like Chris Daukaus and Marcin Tybura.
Yeah.
He could skip that step, as far as I'm concerned, and go straight to taking on, like, a Rosenstrike or a Volkov, and I'd be fine with that.
So I was looking at who's available and what I think makes it. I'm going way higher. Like, I like this kid. This is the name I come up with, and this might be a little too much, but sometimes when you don't have the personality, you need the personality to get you over. And sometimes that personality might not be yours. It might be your opponent's. I'll put him against Derrick Lewis. That's who I'll put him against next.
I think that's a great one. I mean, Derrick Lewis brings a threat that Tom Aspinall has not faced before.
Yep. Power, a very deceiving speed for his build, and then obviously just high level experience too. Very extremely. The guy fought for the title 2 different times.
Yeah, well, that would be like the biggest test of Aspinall's career, and it wouldn't even be like one of the top 5 tests of Lewis's career.
Oh no,
I mean, that if you really want to throw him into the lane of contention, Blades and Rosenstrike are fighting in a couple of weeks. Winner of that, I mean, that's Aspinall versus a top 5 fighter right there.
Yeah, and everybody, if anyone wants to throw out their matchmaking, what you guys do with Tom Aspinall, maybe I'm going a little too high, but you guys would like something a little less. I want to make it clear when I said that he looks like championship material to me. I'm not predicting he wins the title, but he's one of these guys like I would not be surprised. Like, I give him a much better chance of winning the title than Darren Till would. I just, even though I did just defend Darren Till, I give Aspinall a much better chance. Mm-hmm. As far as Spivak, he's still young, so I'm not giving up on him. This was a very tough stylist matchup. I do something like Leo Latifi.
Sure.
Do you have a name or?
I don't have a particular name, but just a Daukaus, Tuivasa, someone like that. Like, I don't think he lost that much by losing this fight. It was a terrible stylistic matchup. It was a guy who did all the same things that he does, only better, and is bigger and is a better athlete.
Yeah. Speaking about guys doing everything you do but better, I think that's exactly what happened in the Alex Morano versus David Zawada, as Alex Morano won a unanimous decision.
What?
Good.
No, just showing everybody my shirt.
Oh, yeah, that's your boy. Houston's own Ben's good buddy. Bass is saying Augusta Sakai. I'm assuming he's not saying Augusta Sakai for Alex Morano. I'm assuming he's still talking about the Tom Aspinall fight. But the way they've been matchmaking Alex Morano, it might not be out of the possibility. Just Morano's going to have to take it on short notice.
Morano, can you weigh 207 pounds in 10 days?
Yeah. I'm going to say this. Even though I scored at 30-27, I thought this fight was much closer than that. Like, the scorecards doesn't indicate. Like, I thought Zawada showed to me that he's like still UFC material. Like, even though he doesn't have the best record in the UFC, like he showed like he's good.
Yeah, all 3 rounds were close. All 3 rounds were close, but I did score them for Morano.
Okay, yeah, me too. To me, Morano was really, really smart. I like one of the things where his coach, Saif Sayyid, was saying like finish, end, and then he listens. He really listens. Like Zawada was bursting in. He had a little bit of a speed advantage on Zawada, and then finishing combinations, landing strikes. I was really impressed by him. Also, nice to see him grapple. I mean, he didn't initiate it, but Zawada did, and we've seen Zawada be pretty solid on the ground.
Oh yeah.
And Morena won those.
Yeah, I mean, he is a second-degree black belt in BJJ. Just you'll never know it if he has anything to say about it. It's underused weapon for sure, but hey, Zavada brought it to the ground and did not get the better of it. So it's good to know the secret weapon is still there.
Before that, Khaleo Roundtree versus Modesto Carcass. And I apologize if I said his last name wrong. Ben's much better at the pronunciation than I am. Khaleo Roundtree, we talk about inconsistency with this guy. Good Khaleo Roundtree showed up.
Oh yeah.
And it was not just good; it was fucking violent. There you go, Bess. It was absolutely violent. That's the best way to describe the way he came out, throwing hard power shots. Man, looked incredible.
He did. Just at his best, his jab and his lead hand are so fast. His kicks are so fast, and so his low kicks are just so fast and so hard. And they're not like the low calf kick thing. He just throws the old traditional hit you in the thigh, and your thigh is bright red, and you're limping, halfway through the round. Yeah, great fight for Roundtree, and that finish, man, the kind of oblique kick to the side of the knee.
Yeah. I can't get excited about Khaleo Roundtree because I feel like his next fight, it's going to be terrible. He's going to lose to someone that he should clearly knock out. Yeah, I don't know. Is there anything else? Bass dropped his own f bomb. Bass loves the obscure guys. He does. Before that, we had the guy that's probably going to get the most attention from this card, Paddy Pimblett. I apologize. I'm distracted. I am in a slow dynasty football draft, and my commissioner's texting me you're up. You've been up for a half hour. We need to finish this up. He's yelling at me. I'm sorry. I'm like, dude, leave me alone. Just give me a kicker and a defense. Anyways, speaking of a kicker and blasted someone's defense, Paddy Pimblett beat up Luigi Vandramini, won by first round TKO. So I'm absolutely torn. I'm absolutely torn by this performance by Paddy Pimblett. Now, obviously, this is a guy that came in, a lot of excitement. He was hurt on the feet, but this is a guy who's known for his grappling, who's just got a knockout win in the first round where we just saw what's the guy that Vandramini just fought? Zayam, who's a really good kickboxer, very, very good kickboxer, couldn't finish him on the feet. So, where do you stand? 'Cause I'm torn on the performance.
Fantastic fight. I don't mind him getting performance of the night. It was an electrifying finish. Like I said,
Yes.
it's a night of wild finishes. Finishes where the momentum swung hard within just the 30 to 60 seconds before the end, which, I mean, those are some of the most fun fights to watch. Having said that, it was not a win that really inspired confidence in Paddy Pimblett for me going forward. Because, yeah, he did something to Luigi Vandramini that Fares Ziam did not manage to do, but at the same time, there are a lot of UFC lightweights. There are dozens of UFC lightweights that would have finished Paddy Pimblett in the first 2 rounds of this fight. Put in that same position, Pimblett's face down, mop of hair going.
Yeah. So I'll say this: people are getting super excited about him. I saw people saying, "Oh, he's so good," and someone was talking about, I forget who it was, someone I respect too, saying one of the best performances, UFC debuts in history, and I'm like, did you forget about Anderson Silva? You forget about Michael Chandler? You forget about who else am I forgetting?
Like great UFC debuts.
Who's crazy?
Well,
I mean, there's others.
yeah.
That wasn't my point, but Anderson Silva is the benchmark. I mean, he threw 20 strikes, landed 19 of them, or something like that.
Yeah.
I don't think almost getting knocked out in the first round, categorizes as one of the best performances. But the overall point was that basically the guy who tweeted, I honestly apologize, I don't remember who it was. He said the UFC lost a moment because if this was in England, it already felt electric when he showed up. Imagine if this was in England, the bear would have been flying all over the place. People would have been crying. It would have been a great performance. And that's what Paddy Pimblett brings.
Yes.
And probably if everybody on Twitter, I'm assuming right now, more people are talking about Paddy Pimblett than any other fighter. And I just want to be like, guys, pump the brakes. He just beat a guy that's just lost. He's now 0-2 in the UFC. Pump the brakes.
Sherdog associate editor Jay Petrie, the king of trivia, points out that Korean Zombie's UFC debut, he slapped on the first twister in UFC history.
Yeah. There you go. There you go. That's a good point. Yeah. I'm sure he could think of other incredible performances in their UFC debut. I'm sure if we really cringe their mind. We don't want to go down that rabbit hole, but I do want to talk about Paddy Pimblett for a second. So it seems like we're both not on the bandwagon. I picked against him. I didn't pick him to win this fight, and I was looking pretty good to start. The reason why I was saying I was torn, do I feel better about him moving forward? I think I do. I think I do because I've seen him striking more. I've seen him get hurt and be able to be composed. But I still think his jiu-jitsu is overrated. I think he's not a strong wrestler, and that does matter when you want to use your jiu-jitsu. And out of all the Europeans who fought tonight, he'd be 3 or 4 down the list of guys that I would really be, if I was a European, that I would really be pushing. That I'm excited about.
Agreed. He's got the ground game that's just built to dominate a regional promotion. It's kind of like Carlos Condit or Miguel Torres in WEC, where they weren't the kind of offensive wrestler to force the issue, but they could always get scrambles or subs off their back, and they just looked like absolute wizards against WEC level guys, and then at the UFC level, it just didn't quite, the motor didn't quite run the same.
Yeah, so
that's going to be Pimblett in the UFC.
I will say this though, I love the personalities. I love the trash talk. I love the personalities. I don't need trash talk, but I need to get connected. I need to identify this person. I need to not forget their name. I want to remember. Paddy Pimblett's someone I remember. The whole Owen Hart haircut thing's funny and whatnot. But his personality, he slammed the post-fight interview, blew off Bisbing's, almost got knocked out. These little things, basically laughed at him. It was just brilliant. And that's exactly what the UFC needs right now. UFC, again, I don't know what his ceiling is, but for the time that he's a thing, it's going to be fun.
Yes. And if his ceiling, even if it's just good enough for him to hang around the outer reaches of contention and put on exciting fights and run the yap, he's gonna make a lot of money in the UFC, and it's gonna be fun while it lasts. He's gonna be a polarizing and divisive figure.
Yeah. So I'll pull back the curtain on how this show works. Is me and Ben, we don't do any prep. We just wing it. I have a couple notes, but I don't have written down, ask Ben this, Ben that. I try to make it much natural, whatever comes to my brain. But we do say, hey, who do you want to match make? Have an idea, because I don't want a guy to be like, I don't want Ben to be like,
And I still am, but yeah.
Usually it's the main event, the co-main event, and then occasionally we'll sprinkle a fighter here and there. Usually we don't go this far down, but the way people were so excited about this guy, I'm like, we probably need to pick who he should fight next. So, I mean, how high up are you bringing this guy? Are you
nobody ranked? Just another young lightweight who won a fight.
Okay. So you're going young. I'm going a different route. So you're gonna be like, give me somebody. Give me a name.
You put me on the spot like this. You go first.
Okay. So I'm going the complete opposite of you. I'm saying I'm going to give him a fight that he probably should win and could win to get his get the wheels moving.
You give him like a Jim Miller type.
Yeah, but he's locked up. I like this matchup even. Give him a guy that's a name that gets people excited, who has a little bit of a personality and whatnot. I'm going Clay Guida. I think that'd be fun. Clay Guida's hair flying around in his face. Definitely put it on a pay-per-view, like opening fight of a pay-per-view, a big one that draws attention. Or if not, get him in England. Get him on a co-main event. I mean, I don't think they deserve a main event, but get him on a co-main event against Clay Guida. That's the fight I would do.
Jay Petrie says Lando Venata. That's another guy that, got a personality, exciting fights, but he just dropped to 145, and it looks like he wants to stay there. That's the only reason I think.
Yeah. I think of Venata, like, you put Lando Venata in the same position, he might have put Paddy Pimblett out.
Oh, yeah, he's going to, like, hit a spinning back elbow on him when he's like, this is going to be like a Mortal Kombat fatality.
I was looking through the rankings and names and going through the fighters and like trying to find a range of I'm not throwing up in the top 10 and getting the guy killed because I don't dislike the guy. I don't see him hurt or anything, but also like you don't deserve that. And then while I'm scrolling in the range of the fighters I wanted to find, Drew Dober's name came up and I was like, oh my God, imagine if he fought Drew Dober. Imagine if like that same situation. Anyways. Should we do anything else you want to say about Paddy Pimblett before we move on?
No, just welcome to the UFC. It looks like it's going to be a fun ride.
So I always think of it, what are those called? Those circles, the two circles where they overlap, like you have two topics. What is it called?
A Venn diagram.
Yeah, that's why Ben is really smart and I'm not. So you have those cross. I always think of like talent and marketability, and ultimately you want the guy who fits both. Connor fit both. Sure. Ronda fit both. Whoever. I feel like if we were doing the Venn diagram and they were crossing, it wouldn't be like how normally you see it and they cross and it's about 50-50 on that circle. It'd be a lot more like mostly marketability with a little bit of talent. Like it would just be touching the talent. That's how I feel about him.
Yeah, that works for me.
But the public cares a lot more about a fighter than the opposite, where you have a guy that's all talent with just a little bit of marketability.
Yes.
Yeah,
absolutely. If it were just talent, like Cain Velasquez would have been a superstar.
Yeah, Whiskey Dragonfly wants to put him against the Russians, your Dagestanis in the division. Apparently, Whiskey Dragonfly is. I'm gonna keep saying his entire name because I like it.
Yeah.
Whiskey Dragonfly is not a fan of Paddy Pimblett.
Well,
if he wants,
he's hardcore as hell. Like he just doesn't want him to face any of the like Dagestani four-guard contingents until he's like absolutely has to because he's in the top 10.
Yeah. I'm sorry. I read he's moving around. Oh yes.
Yeah. He wants to avoid them like the slalom.
Oh, I apologize. Yes, I was reading that. I want to sit there reading, like making it. Yeah, I read that wrong. I was thinking you were saying like put him against those guys. No, he's saying the opposite. Like avoid them at all costs, which probably should be every fighter in the UFC strategy to stay away from it. And if your name ends with an like OV,
oh yeah,
a DOF or DOV, like avoid those guys.
Yeah,
at all
keep them away from all Magomeds. Just
Magomeds. That's another Magomeds. We have name ends in DOF. Paddy Pimblett's teammate, who made an appearance twice tonight as she ran out from the back to celebrate with Paddy Pimblett.
Dude, what a moment that would have been if it were in front of a British crowd.
I know. I know it's like some people are like, oh, that shouldn't happen. We don't see other fighters run in the back. They celebrate in the back. Like some people on Twitter were saying this. Like,
who gives a shit?
I don't care. I want more of that. I want the fighter to run on the back, jump in the cage. Like I want more of that. Yeah. Or let's have a fight where one guy wins and then like his teammates' music starts playing. He comes out and challenges them for his next fight. Yeah, like I'll go that extreme. Like, Rafael or Dustin Poirier beats Islam Makhachev, and suddenly Khabib's music comes and he comes out of retirement to fight him. Like that's we get Jim Ross to commentate. Like, my God, he's back. Stuff like that. That's the old 1980s wrestling fan in me. Um, but before that, Molly McCann made her second appearance. Her first appearance, she fought Jin Young Kim, and it was the fight of the night. It was an absolute banger.
Oh yeah.
Molly McCann showed exactly how you fight a long, rangy fighter who wants to point kickbox you. If you're a really short fighter, you just force them on their back foot and get in their face. And credit to her because she ate a lot of shots coming in, and she turned like 12 shades of red during it.
Oh yeah.
But her output and toughness, in that she's saying that she had torn ACLs, MCLs, torn everything. She basically was they cut her out of a body cast before she fought.
I mean, she got dropped by a headbutt in the dropped by an inadvertent head
Oh,
clash
yeah.
in the first round.
Which I was worried was going to cost her the fight because it was a close round, and you see one fighter fall down, and the judges don't get told like, "Hey, it was a headbutt," like we all got to see.
Well, I scored the first round for Kim because I was watching it muted, so I didn't know
Oh,
that was a head clash instead of a punch until after the round. I was just like one of the real judges.
yeah, which is If you don't, I mean, if you could mute it, you could have saw the replay. But yeah, if you're not watching the replay, I understand that, and that was, but it also was a close round regardless.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
But I was just so impressed that she could keep up that pace. I mean, she was throwing bombs too. She was trying to end the fight with every single punch, getting inside. That's exactly how you're supposed. When someone's more technically sound striker and longer, you have to turn it into a brawl. And you got to have the toughness, the chin, the cardio, and she checked all the boxes. I was so impressed by Molly. Like, I'm not high on her moving forward.
We know what her ceiling is.
Yeah, exactly. We know what her ceiling is. She has a very limit to her athleticism. She's not very technical. I mean, her one takedown she got was, as Daniel covered, extremely lucky and really, like, she almost bounced herself off the mat and turned over. Like that, Michael Bisping was like, "Wow, that was nice." And I was like, "No, that was pure luck. That won't work against other people." But for the time being, like, way to go, Molly McCann. That was really, really fun.
Yep. She's going to be a bonus magnet for as long as she sticks around the UFC. Jay Petrie asks, whose performance was better against a longer striker, Molly against Kim or Josiane Nunes against Bea Malecki 2 weeks ago? I say Molly against Kim just because Bea Malecki sucks, and Kim is actually pretty good.
Yeah, I don't know if that's a. I'm gonna go Nunes. I'm gonna disagree with you, just because the size was even bigger in that one.
Oh yeah, size difference was ridiculous.
Like, it was like fighting Semi Schilt. I mean, that was, and then she also knocked her out too.
Yeah.
So she got the knockout too. But yeah, good call by Jay. Bass likes that MMA has a little bit of WWF in them. Yeah, me too. If Vince McMahon ran the UFC, it'd be even more popular or something. So the guy that now I'm going to go back to Paddy Pimblett for a second. Now everyone's going crazy. He's the guy who's put UK on the map, this and that. He's how high is the ceiling? He's mouthing off to these other guys in the UFC. The complete opposite personality of Paddy Pimblett is Jack Shaw. But Jack Shaw, the one, is a guy that if either one of these ever hold a title, I think it's going to be Jack Shaw. This guy is freaking.
I'm with you there. I mean, you and I both thought this was going to be a tougher fight for him than the odds indicated, and it just wasn't. He was better than Shillan everywhere. He completely dominated.
He won a unanimous decision over Ludwig Shillan, but I was so impressed. I'm writing notes, and just my notes just keep going for him. I mean, how young he is, how calm he is on the feet. Like, he doesn't waste any kind of energy. How technically sound, man. We saw a beautiful jab. When Shillan actually tried wrestling, the takedown fence, he couldn't get Shaw down. Flip it. Shaw got a Ukrainian national wrestling team member down, held him down with heavy, heavy top pressure. Just, slowly waited his time, waited for an opening, moved to side mount, moved to guard. Full mount at one point, took his back, almost locked in submissions, just throwing in, submission attempts. Just so impressed. This guy's 15-0 now.
Yep.
I'm floored by this kid. I'm absolutely just. I tweeted out, it's time for him to get a big step up in competition because I just want to know how good he is.
It really is. I mean, think of it this way. Bisping and Cormier were joking on the broadcast because they both made it to 15-0 in their careers and then lost their 16th fight. They were fighting Rashad Evans and John Jones, respectively. And Shore hasn't even fought a top 10 guy yet.
Different time,
different weight classes, but just in terms of, like, they had been moving up the ladder from the time they were like 9-0, and Shore, is now 4 fights into his UFC career. He needs a ranked guy.
Really? I'm glad you said, because I'm going way up. So I say the name I wrote down was Rafael Sunsao. That's what I would give him.
I like a Sunsao. Merab and Marlon Moraes are fighting in a couple weeks. I'd be fine with the winner of that. Like, Merab is the guy that supposedly nobody wants to fight. I bet Jack Shore would fight him. And that'd be a hell of a fight.
That'd be such an intriguing stylistic matchup. Jack Shore is so good on the ground.
Yes.
Like, really, really good.
Like, I believe Merab could get him down because Merab's one of the best takedown artists in the UFC, but I don't know if Merab would be safe once they got there. Like, I don't think Merab would necessarily want to take him down,
Bruce Bob Trotter just showed up. We love Bruce. He's a pretty funny guy. Not too confident in Darren Till saying he showed 0 takedown defense. Could Jack Shore take down Darren Till? I had to find some way to trans back to Jack Shore. Before that, Charles Jourdain versus Julian Arosa in an absolute incredible stand-up battle until Julian Arosa locked on a Bravo choke, getting a third-round submission. The size advantage.
The size advantage was ridiculous.
That stood out to me. He looks huge next to Jourdain, and Julian Arosa just does Julian Arosa things. Like, I already used my F-bomb on Khaleo Roundtree, but I could throw it on Julian Arosa if I want. It's like he fits in that. He deserves like an F-bomb in there.
What a great finish. Just, and I joked on Twitter when the fight started. I'm like, I feel bad because I think of Julian Arosa as the human highlight reel, but it's mostly his opponent's highlights. Because I just think, remember when that dude knocked out Julian Arosa and this guy head kicked him? This was a highlight. Like, that Bravo choke was so fast. Like, he just slapped it on so fast, this thing was done, and Jourdain had nowhere to go. And until then, Jourdain had been kind of tooling him. I mean, the first round I gave to Arosa narrowly, but Jourdain was just getting into the flow of things. Like, the second round, he was starting to snipe him. He's so fast.
Yeah. It was a really, really fun, entertaining fight. Like, when he dropped him, I thought that was like, but the way, if he doesn't get knocked out, he really finds a way to battle himself back in. The commentator team pointed out, like, he just popped right back up and he didn't step back, doesn't circle away, doesn't kind of get his brain back together. He just moves forward. And I wrote down, it's so hard to win a fight when you're on your back foot. Now, I had it 1-1. I got to read Bruce Bob Trotter said Brandon Moreno could take down Darren Till. Speaking of takedowns, the third round, I had it 1-1. I thought it was so smart for Julian Rosa to look for a takedown.
Yes.
And he held him down for a long time. And at the very second where Jourdain used all his energy deep in the fight, tried to get back up to his feet, right when it seems like he's about to escape, he uses the opportunity, jumps in the Bravo chart, and finishes him. Just this new turnaround for Julian Rosa, like, he's in the Molly McCann category. Like, we're not going to get excited for him, but it's just he's always going to be fun to watch.
Yes. Just, I mean, again, you and I mentioned we both like the story of him. This is his third run in the UFC, and it's finally clicking for him. Just anything that allows me to see more of Julian Arosa in the UFC, I want it to happen. Like, these are fun fights, man. Win or lose.
He feels like the guy when someone falls out and it's in the Julian Arosa weight class. Like, he feels like the guy you just throw on Twitter. Like, how about Julian Arosa?
Oh yeah.
Because and honestly, his Bravo choke, it's happened twice now. I mean, he did the same thing to Sean Woodson late in a fight. Mm-hmm. So go to Julian Arosa. And the first fight of the night, I apologize ahead of time for butchering his name, but Dolce Longambula.
Very good.
Took on Marc-Andre Barriault. Barriault won a unanimous decision. Brilliant performance. I thought it was a really brilliant performance. I was so impressed by Barrio. I was impressed by three things. One, his pressure, which we knew that was going to be a huge factor in the fight.
Mhm.
Two, his chin. Like regardless of being able to force Dolce back on his back foot, he still ate a lot of hot shots and just kept like never seemed phased by it. And then when Dolce, he forced Dolce to want to wrestle and explode and take him down. As soon as he hit the ground, he was bouncing right back up, which was had so many effects. One, it was draining Dolce's cardio, which we really saw as the fight went on. But two, even more importantly, I feel like it was mentally breaking Dolce a little bit.
Yes. Dolce.
And then, sorry, guys.
Well, I'm just saying, like, he's a bit of a front runner. Like, he's used to when he punches something cleanly, it goes down and the fight's over. So guys that bounce back up and get in his face, or when he takes them down, they get back up. It does frustrate him. Like, you're absolutely right.
Yeah, and then it also makes him a limited fighter. Like he becomes a one-dimensional fighter. And the thing that really hurt Dolce is Dolce had the strategy of eat a shot and then load up on my counter.
Yep.
And to Mark Andre Barrios' credit, Barrio hit him and then get out of the way before that punch was coming. He could see it coming a mile away. And he's really you don't knock out a guy with the big haymaking punch. That's not the one. It's the short, clean down the pipe that they don't see coming. That's the punch that knocks you out. Hardly. The reason why these big looping ones we get in the knockout rails forever is because they don't happen often. It's a shorter punch.
Mm-hmm.
And Dolce's got I don't know if middleweight was the right move. I still think maybe staying at light heavy would have been a better stay for him, but
It's possible, if his gas tank could be better there. And I mean, the gas tank, he did get tired, but it's not like the wheels fell completely off. I mean, he didn't get finished. Like, it was still a competitive round. He was still throwing offense. He has other problems than that, too. Like, he backs straight up. His head movement isn't great. Just Marc-Andre Barrio isn't the niftiest striker in the world, but you could tell he figured Dolce out.
yeah.
Like, just Dolce's tricks didn't work after about the beginning of the second round.
Yep. Yeah, once the second round started and I was like, I don't think he won the first, even though it was close.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think he won the first. I'm like, his chances of winning is very limited.
Yep.
There you have it. We covered all 9 fights. Let's do the fun stuff. We have the Bulls and the Bears, the cut list, and the overall grade. Let's do the cut list first. As I don't know why I act surprised because we usually do the cut list first every time. I have two names. How many names do you have?
I have one.
Okay. So before we'll explain what the cut list is, it's pretty self-explanatory. If me and Ben were running the UFC, if you were on both our lists, we're the two bosses, you would no longer be in the UFC. Obviously, it's a negative effect, but also gives openings for guys like Paddy Pimblett to get an opening if we didn't. So you have to be on both of our lists. If you're not on both, you save for the next time. You had one, so let me hear your one.
I've got Luigi Vandramini. Even if I give him a pass on the Eliseo Capoeira fight because it was short notice, it was up a weight class, he's lost 2 in a row. So he's 1-3 in the UFC. And the guy he beat, Jason Ayari, he's out of the UFC. Like, so he hasn't beaten the UFC level guy yet, and he's 1-3. Luigi Vandramini's on mine.
Yeah, that was my other name. Like you said, he's winless in the UFC. He's had his opportunity. He might have had some tough, both guys. Like, as much as I'm not Paddy Pimblett shill, he's talented, and Ziam is talented. But yeah, I agree with him. Unfortunately, no go for him. The other name I had was Modesto Carcass. He's lost 3 in a row, and somehow we talked about Khaleo in the final. We didn't talk about that he won by a lead kick to the like. I don't know how damaged he got. So the
leg is broken.
Oh, is it?
On top
it's
of everything
official?
else, he has a broken leg.
That's official?
Yeah.
Okay. I wasn't sure if it was going to be like a broken leg or if it was
I assumed
torn.
ligaments tore as soon as I saw the replay, but yeah, broken
leg. Oh, yeah,
too.
that's what I was thinking. Like torn ACL, torn something. That sucks even worse if he broke his leg or something. Yeah, extremely violent. But unfortunately, he's lost his last 3 fights in a row.
He has. You're right. And neither Roundtree nor Oleksiejczuk is like an absolute world beater. I don't think losing to Jimmy Crude is anything to be like ashamed of. But no, I'm fine with that. Like Bukauskas can go convalesce and then go back and win some fights in Cage Warriors. Go win back
Yeah,
his title.
Bruce Bobtrotter is really, now he's trolling because he's saying Jake Paul should beat up DC. DC would murder Jake Paul. Anyways, but hey, who knows? Maybe he wouldn't. Let's do the Bulls and the Bears. The Bulls and the Bears is a stock market reference when something's going good. It's a bull market or a bull stock when it's going bad. It's a bear market or bear stock. So we do it hockey style 3-2-1 with basically the three stars that they do in hockey, with number one being the best. Let's do the Bears first. And Ben, I'll let you go first. So these are people who did not have a good night.
Okay, people who did not have a good night. Gonna go number 3, Ludwig Shillan. It just, like, he looked pretty competitive on the show, but what we're learning is that this just wasn't a great season to Tough. Not only did he lose to Jack Shore, there just wasn't much spark there. Like, this was a bad look out of the gate for him. Number 2, I'm gonna go Modestus Bukauskas. I mean, he's lost 3 straight, as you pointed out, and they've been increasingly one-sided, and the last 2 at least not against the top level of competition. Number 1, got to be Darren Till. This was a chance for him to show that he's a for real contender at this new division, and he fell short. I mean, part of it is just the way the chips fell, but nonetheless, a loss is a loss is a loss. You can't get by on the eyeball test and, hey, we all know you're talented forever.
Yeah, absolutely. So I had a hard time coming up with 3 because there wasn't, this is a fight night. There wasn't too many guys with too much stock where everyone's talking about it. So my list was a little tougher, but almost the exactly same. My number 3 was Luigi Vandramini. The reason why I picked Vandramini is just how he lost. It's been 2 fights in a row where he had a guy absolutely rocked and could not find a way to put him out and get the finish. My number 2 was also Modestus Bukauskas. 1, I can't pronounce his name, so that hurts him. 2, he's lost 3 in a row, and 3, now you're saying he's got a broken leg, probably ligament damage, and he probably won't be fighting for a while. And number 1, Darren Till, too. Besides the fact that you said he'd show that he's a true contender, being the way the division is, and that he has a big personality, and the champion has cleared out the division, 1 win right here, and his next fight could have been against Israel Adesanya. Instead, we have not a single person that says anything positive about him yet. Bruce Bob tried to say Brandon Moreno could take him down. So, yeah, not a good night for Darren Till. Move over to the Bulls. I'll go first. I'm going to go with my number 3 is Marc-Andre Barriault. Yeah, he's on a 2-fight winning streak. He seems not just that he's only on a 2-fight winning streak. He's just showing more tools to his game, showing much more controlled, much more intelligent. Just looks like a much better fighter than he was a year ago.
Yeah.
My number 2, Julian Arosa. Listen, like we said, we know what the stealing is, but this is his 3rd stint in the UFC. Both me and Ben are rooting for him. I just love this underdog story. He's 3-1 since returning. So this is a guy that he kind of got brought in 3rd time just because of COVID and just to be a guy to lose, and they picked the wrong guy. And my number 1, I'm going to put a whole bunch together as number 1. It wasn't perfect. It almost was perfect night. If Darren Till won the main event, it would have been perfect night. But overall, I still think that I gave England, UK, Cage Warriors champions, Liverpool, and in British stars or UK stars. I put them all as one. And what I'm saying is, like, fighters from Liverpool went 3-1 in the night. Fighters from the UK went 4-1. Fighters from England went 3-1. Former Cage Warriors champions went 3-1. So good night for Cage Warriors. And then just stars. I mean, Paddy Pimblett is an absolute star from the region. Jack Shore, like, he doesn't have the biggest personality, but, like, we're talking about him fighting top 15 guys. Just, yeah, it would have been perfect if 2 things happened. 1, if Darren Till won, and 2, it was in the UK. Neither one happened. And I think that'd be a no-brainer, number 1. But still a good night for that region.
Yes, absolutely.
What do you have for your Bulls?
Number 3, Julian Arosa, same reasons you just mentioned. Number 2, Alex Morona. Great night for the homie Alex. You pointed out that he does a great job of listening to his coach. You can tell that he is a coach in there. And hey, stepped in and got an extra paycheck on short notice. Good look for Alex. Number 1, Tom Aspinall. Tom Aspinall is going to be a big favorite in all of his fights until he fights like a top 5 fighter. So there's something to be said for just going in there and just whooping a guy that you're supposed to beat and leaving no question about who the better man was in every regard. Like he bulldozed a good fighter in Sergey Spivak. So great night at the office for Tom Aspinall.
Yeah, that's a good point. When I just talked about all the British fighters, UK fighters, I said stars. I should have put him in the category. It should have been 3 stars: Pimblett, him, and Shore. I mean, I'm talking about him fighting Derrick Lewis next. Josh Lazard giving us some love. Thank you, buddy. Thanks for listening. He says he listens all the time. He said cheers. I'm assuming he's from. He's not American, but thanks a lot. If you haven't already, please like, subscribe, share, and all that good stuff. And anybody else who's listening, please do all that. Last question for you, Ben. What is your grade?
Letter grade for the card? Dude, any card that I can still see light out, and I'm actually going to go to an MMA smoker as soon as this thing's done and see some local pros get some experience under their belt in a non-sanctioned environment, that's an A. I give this card an A, regardless of whether it deserved it or not based on the fights.
Yeah, I did too. I think the fights were exciting. I wish it wasn't the UK crowd because you can feel the excitement from a crowd. I mean, you could even feel the excitement when Pimblett was fighting with just the small crowd that was there by invitation and whatever. So yeah, I also give her. I don't have light out. It's still dark where it's dark outside, but I generally point it's not even 9 o'clock yet, so I do like that. So I agree. I give it an A. I give it an F for our software tonight. On my side, it's probably my computer, or more likely, I have to update some kind of the program we use. But and I didn't lie. We forgot to give the who was your top chat? Who's the award winner for the chat tonight?
We got Boz in there. He's just such a solid performer.
He could always win. It's like I feel like, and I don't mean to insult, but we give Bass the win. It's like giving the main eventer a win, like the performance ones. Of course.
Yeah. Whiskey Dragonfly, I think he's new and he just showed up and laid waste around here. Bruce Bobtrotter showed up halfway through the show and just started brutalizing Till. I wish if we went for another hour, he'd be like my grandma could take down Darren Till. I'm gonna give it to Bruce. Good fourth quarter performance there.
I hope Bruce has the same personality every topic in the world, just whatever it is. He just loves shitting on things. I feel like if Bruce was my neighbor, we could kick back some beers and he'd probably outdrink me and they go on message boards. I think Bruce is a good one. I'm gonna give it to Whiskey Dragonfly. I love the name. I think he's been good this whole time. And he wasn't really late like Bruce, but I love Bruce too. So there you guys have it. Thanks for joining us on the live chat. If you're not listening live, you're watching a replay. We appreciate that too. Please, we don't do this. I probably forget to, but we probably should say this, guys. If you haven't already, please like the channel. Please share this. Please tell other people. We do this after every show. We'll be back. 2 weeks is the next time we do a recap. Right? 2 weeks, right? That's the Anthony Smith, Ryan Spann. But we will also be doing a preview show that week where so you kind of do this, how you do it. There's 3 things you need to do when it comes to an MMA, a UFC event. You got to watch the preview show that me and Ben do. Then you watch the event. And then you come back and you talk about it with us. And you tell us how terrible our picks were.
Yes.
So there you guys have it. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next time.